Hi, I'm Luke Margolis with Atlantic Health System. Thanks for listening to our latest podcast. On behalf of all the doctors, nurses, and other team members committed to building healthier communities, we're proud to share the latest news from across our system. For health tips and other life-saving information, visit atlantichealth.org.
Welcome to Mind Your Mental Health, a podcast series brought to you by Concern, which is a part of the behavioral health service line here at Atlantic Health. I'm Nick Carter, and I'm here with Sharon Kelly.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, Sharon.
Welcome to the month of love. This is February, and this month we're going to be talking about our love relationships. And these are some of the most important relationships of our lives, and also some of the most challenging.
You mean they're not easy?
They do start out kind of easy, but if you stay around long enough, they can get kind of challenging, and that's what we're going to talk about today, the stages of love.
You're right. There are stages, just like other things in life. In relationships, we go through stages.
Exactly. You know, sometimes we meet someone in a social setting through friends or at work. That's kind of the historical way that people have met a partner, a love interest. Nowadays, I'm trying to keep up with the the fast pace of how people pair up. But we hear about this now, that now people are meeting online.
Sure.
They're getting acquainted through profiles, texting, FaceTime, before they actually even meet in person. But, you know, whether it's an old-fashioned way or if it's a new way, no matter how you meet, or if you are in a same-sex relationship, a heterosexual relationship, marriage, or a committed union, if you spend enough time together, your relationship will go through stages and changes.
Yeah,
and it's
true.
also important to note that the most important relationship that you need to develop is the one with yourself. But when we start to partner up with another, there are usually some stages that we move through. So, Nick, let's review for our listeners those stages of love.
Let's talk about that first stage, which
Let's
is so
talk
fun,
about
right?
it. Oh, don't we all love that first stage?
You know, the first part is that initial attraction that has the infatuation and all of that excitement that comes with meeting a person for the first time and just being so attracted to them and feeling I want to spend more time with them. John Gottman is a researcher in relationships, done a lot of great work that we can use in our work, Sharon, at Concern. But he talks about that falling in love, infatuation first stage.
Big deal.
Yeah, and this is where we're experiencing such strong feelings characterized by even physical symptoms such as flushing, trembling, heart palpitations, the excitement, the intrusive thinking, the obsession, the fantasy, the sexual excitement, and the fear of rejection.
Yikes, yes. Yeah. Our body actually produces a certain chemical reaction when we're in this phase of love. There's a few chemicals that you might be interested in. I'll just share those with you. One of them is called PEA. It's a long word that I'm not even going to try to say. It's a natural form of amphetamine that our body produces, and it's called the molecule of love.
Nice.
Interesting,
the molecule
right?
of love. Okay.
That's happening when we're falling in love. There's also pheromones that are produced from DHEA, and they influence sensuality rather than sexuality in creating an inexplicable sense of well-being and comfort.
And Sharon, I've heard about another thing, oxytocin. What's that?
Yes, the cuddle hormone, right? It compels us to get close. When we're feeling close to anyone, we secrete it. It's secreted by the posterior pituitary gland, interestingly enough. It's in the brain, and it stimulates the secretion of dopamine, estrogen, LHRH, and a whole bunch of other things that really do help us to feel good, feel warm and connected.
So this phase one that seems so simple about infatuation and falling in love is really a neurotransmitter chemical phenomenon that's rather complicated.
Experience. No wonder we feel so overwhelmed when we fall in love sometimes.
Well, what happens after that? Then we move into another stage, right?
Yes, right. You're going to talk a little bit about that phase two of building trust.
That's tough because you get to that point in the relationship in which you are now asking questions like, will you be there for me?
Yeah.
Can I trust you?
Can I
count on you to have my back?
Right?
Oh, that's tough. And these questions are the basis of conflicts for newlyweds who, have gotten just through that infatuation stage, but now are moving into a deeper level of relating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes this phase is associated with frustration, exasperation, disappointment, sadness, and even fury.
Yeah, it's sort of like, the polar opposite of all that excitement of the first phase, and now we kind of move into we're moving into the real deal here.
I know.
In phase two.
We have that fantasy that it's always going to be like this. It's always going to be so idealistic and wonderful. But that's just not real.
Yeah, and John Gottman says that, in order to sort of traverse this phase of love well, he has a cool acronym called ATTUNE, and this stands for the 6 processes that healthy couples have to go through in order to get through this phase 2.
Now, I know you're going to tell our listeners what those stand for, but let me just say that again. ATTUNE, ATTUNE.
Yes.
So what does that stand for?
All right, so John Gottman says ATTUNE, A stands for being aware of one's partner's struggles. What are they, what are they struggling with? What are their pains and difficulties? So we want to be aware of that, not just our own feelings. T, we want to be able to have tolerance, that there are always 2 valid viewpoints. I know that's pretty hard
I'm
sometimes.
always right, Sharon. Well, how's
And
that play
I'm
into
always
this?
right. So yeah, if we want to move into attunement, then we both agree that we both have a point of view.
I see.
The other T stands for turning towards one's partner's needs. Right? We're not turning away or rejecting or ignoring. We're leaning in. And then U would stand for trying to understand our partner. N for being able to be non-defensive in our listening, which is never easy.
So hard.
Yeah. And E is for cultivating, genuine empathy for each other. This is a lot of work for healthy couples, but when you do it well, you're on your way to moving through phase 2 of a love relationship.
Oh, that's nice.
On to phase 3, Nick.
Attune. Before we get to 3, I just want
okay.
to attune, ATTUNE, a good way of trying to remember some of the things that work in relationships. Yep, and so phase 3 is about building a deeper relationship, and in order to do that, we have to build true commitment and loyalty, and it's about a couple either cherishing one another and nurturing gratitude for what they have with one another, or sometimes, on the negative side of things, sort of nurturing a resentment, holding on to a resentment of something that didn't happen or something that is missing or that they have felt has been a hurt from a long time ago. And in this phase, making a deeper love last a lifetime, or conversely, nurturing that betrayal
Right.
and holding on to that resentment.
And sadly, we do see a lot of couples that come in for couples counseling, and they've already nurtured their resentments rather than their love. And, they can turn it around, but this is some hard work. If you're early in your relationship, you want to be aware of that and nurture the love.
And in this phase, there's also this notion of equity. Now, let's talk about fairness. We all want to be treated fairly, right? But in a relationship, sometimes at this stage, we are not necessarily feeling all that respectful and fair towards our partner and don't treat them that way. So it's very difficult to establish a deep, trusting relationship when there is this power asymmetry or unequalness,
Right.
one in which the distribution of the power feels unfair to the other person.
Yeah, and that's a lot to unpack, actually, but it's good to just remember, is this feeling, equitable? Is this feeling like we're both having time to be heard, listened to, and respected in our relationship? And that will lead us to a healthier, happier lifetime together, and we can move on in our deeper relationship.
Absolutely. So let's just review for our listeners. We've talked about the stages of relationships, and we began with the infatuation stage, and we moved into a deeper relationship in which there's building of trust. And then finally we talked about a long-term relationship in which there is a commitment and a loyalty.
Absolutely. So, next week, Nick, we're going to discuss some of the different communication styles that work in relationships. So tune in next week, and we will talk to you about love languages.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks, Nick.